Okay, we are ready to reconvene and hear from Mr. Fridley and the Mark Twain.
Good evening. My name is Matt Fridley. I'm the principal at Mark Twain Elementary. I'm excited to be here tonight. First of all, I want to start out by saying thank you to the board for presenting us with this opportunity. It's always good to come in and talk about your school and have an opportunity to share the good things that are going on and the ways in which you're trying to improve what you do for students. We're off to a great start this year. Our building has changed in many ways and some great ways as well. Enjoying some of the changes, and I'll talk my way through some of that tonight. And I do also have some individuals here to talk tonight. I have Mrs. Tess Green. She's here from kindergarten. She's also our PBS, our Positive Behavior Support Facilitator. She'll talk about Class Dojo and our school-wide implementation of that. I also have Mrs. Swice here as a parent. She's a parent of a second grade student and also a kindergarten student, and she'll talk about the parent's perspective of Mark Twain as well. And then also Joe Cross is up there. Mr. Cross is a first grade teacher. He's here tonight just to observe a board meeting because he is working through an admin degree. So it's kind of nice. Smart guy. Smart guy. He needs the minutes on his plan. So thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate you.
You get a lot of minutes tonight.
Yes, he's getting plenty of minutes tonight. So some of you took more minutes than others. I'm just saying. So first of all, I'll start out by giving you an idea of how we develop our school improvement plan. We review our school improvement plan in August to check our progress from the previous year. Our plan is methodical. We look over the things that we put into place from the previous year, and honestly from several years, because many of the things that we do carry over. Our building leadership team works in small groups to write the goals and strategies, and then we break out into small groups and break the goals out and work on them so that everyone in the building has a vested interest in the goals that we have. The new school improvement plan is rewritten and it's shared in our faculty meeting, and everyone has access to it on our Google Drive. We also create a placemat that goes on our website. My goal is to present information to parents in a way that is easily read, that makes sense and is in terms that make sense to a parent's from a parent's perspective. We use data from both our parent-teacher conferences. We take surveys at our first quarter and our third quarter parent-teacher conferences. We also use a school-wide data point that we take a survey towards the end of the year we send out, and then also survey data from my own personal survey to create the goals that we have for our building. I included a few pictures in our slideshow tonight. As you can see there, our PTO is supportive of many of the things that we do. This is an outside recess chalkboard. Many of our students don't want to play at recess. The kids who want to do something different, they have an opportunity to get out and draw. It was neat to see their perspective of what they wanted to draw. So I enjoy that part of our school, that we expand the way that kids can enjoy recess with one another. So, and that's available to all grade levels. I'd like to start out by telling you a quick story about our first faculty meeting. Many of you that know me or have been around me a long time, you know that I like to fish. And at our first faculty meeting, I gave an analogy about small group instruction. And I talked about how I spent the summer with my wife. We like to fish together, and honestly, she outfishes me most of the time, and that's okay. But we talked about something as simple as tying a hook, how I can stand up in the front of a room and try to teach you how to tie a hook. But for some, that's not going to work. You may not be able to see it. You may not be able to comprehend how it works. We talked at the first faculty meeting about how sometimes you have to get in a small group and sit down one-on-one and work with someone. And our focus this year has been, one of the key components of our focus this year is working in small groups with students. If you've listened to Mark Twain's presentation over the years, we talk about response to intervention. How are we going to help kids who are either meeting expectations or not? And one of the things we've talked about this year was small group instruction. And if you go throughout our building, you'll see students working in small groups, whether it be with a regular ed teacher or with a paraprofessional, or sometimes in their SPED classrooms. So, our goals, any changes that we have been marked in red. Our goals reflect our core beliefs. and as such, they're essential to the success of our students. You won't see a radical change in many of our goals unless we see a significant decline in student performance in these areas. You will see a shift in the tools we use to measure the progress on these goals and our strategies and action steps. So as I go through this, the 2016 is on the left and 2017 is on the right. You can see we added another tool that we measure. Our first goal is to improve student performance on math and English language arts. Our strategies and action steps, as we go through them, the blue were areas we talked about that needed work. We talked about areas that we needed to improve, whether it was through a survey or through data we collected, and those areas that we changed were marked in red. So you'll see one of the things, the very first thing we talked about with the change in our building was the opportunity to provide a daily common plan time. Now, from the outsider's perspective, it doesn't really equate to much, but when you're a teacher and you have an opportunity to meet with any one of your grade level members any day of the week, when you have a plan time that is common, so that you can sit down and talk about today, what is going on today in my classroom. And if you need to meet, you can. And that's one of the benefits we found in our new schedule this year, is that teachers have a common plan time. They have an opportunity to share information and to work together to react immediately. In the past, we were having monthly blocks of time, and as you know, things move quickly in an elementary building, and if you wait for a month, you can get pretty far behind with your students. This really works well with our veteran teachers helping our younger teachers, and sometimes our younger teachers have some great ideas that maybe they're sharing with our veteran teachers. So it's a great collaboration time for our teachers, and as you'll talk to our faculty and staff, you'll see that they appreciate that time. You'll see our response to intervention model. We're continuing with the response to intervention model, but if you look at the way we provide interventions for students, there's a significant amount of small group instruction going on. When you go into a classroom, you'll see students working 2 or 3 at a time with a teacher. It takes, for some it was going on already, but for some it takes a change in the way that you look at how you educate students. The best way to sometimes figure out what's going on with a student is to sit down one-on-one with that student. We've implemented more mentoring in our building, and tonight we'll talk a little bit about Class Dojo and how we use Class Dojo. I know the other buildings have talked about it, how we use it as a building to communicate with parents, not only just about behaviors, but also about academic work and some of the things that their children are involved in. Another area we emphasize is recognizing positive behaviors and attendance. We spend a lot of time throughout the year meeting with our students to let them know. This is an example of a positive behavior support assembly. We have one a month where we recognize our students. We're looking at recognizing more of our students who have perfect attendance. Right now we just recognize a few from each grade level. One boy and one girl usually, but the intention is to recognize all of our students that have perfect attendance during a specific time period. It's important. We all know that if students are in the building, they can learn. The second goal talks about Mark Twain will improve citizenship skills with an emphasis on promoting positive behavior and good character traits. We look at a couple things here. Our building attendance rate for last year was 95.44. We're looking for a building-wide attendance rate of 92%. We continue to talk to our students about this. As the administrator in the building, I spend time talking to parents, whether it's just coming in and setting appointments for the dentist, if they can change the appointment, or if it's showing up to school on time. It's imperative that a child learns those good traits at school. We spend a lot of time talking to parents and students about how important it is to come to school. We also use a parent survey on first and third quarter and at the end of the year to determine whether or not our parents understand what we're trying to teach our students with regard to behavior and character traits. And Class Dojo reports. One of the things, number 4 on 2016, we looked a lot at our discipline referrals, but what we weren't looking at as much was the positives. Where were we seeing the most positives from students? With the implementation of school-wide Class Dojo, we can look at where our students are performing well. and maybe figure out things that we can do to emphasize that, rather than focusing on the behavior issues we had as much. We focus on both the positive and the areas where we need work. So it's been a positive change in the way we look at attitude and behavior of students, and it gives parents immediate feedback. And I hope tonight, as Mrs. Green talks about it and Mrs. Weiss talks about it, that you'll understand what we're trying to do with our families. It really goes along well with the book that you all have taken on this year. The next page talks about recognized attendance. Once again, you'll see at Mark Twain Elementary, we do a lot of things to talk about the positive things that students do. We have everything from Friday dance parties to highest attendance of a grade level. They sit on the bleachers. Students need to be recognized, as do adults. We tend to see a higher increase in positives if we recognize them, so we continue to do that. And then as on the next page, we talk a little bit about some of the other things we do to support student behaviors. Mrs. Cook is our counselor. Mrs. Cook continues to work with small group classes. We have a student leadership team that has an impact on student behaviors. We have a group of third grade students. Last year it was fourth grade. This year it's third grade because our fourth graders moved on. We have third grade students that help work around the building. They do everything from greeting other students when they come in the building, to helping substitute teachers, to just being someone in the morning who helps a pre-K student go down the hallway. It's great to see that. It provides an opportunity for students who are leaders to demonstrate their leadership skills. So it seems to be a great way for us to share the ownership of the building with our students. Technology is always an area that we focus on in our building. Another key area of our school improvement plan is technology. This year we have Chromebooks in every single classroom in second grade. That means every child has access to a Chromebook in their classroom. One of the things that we've done over the years is taken great care with our budget, and also talked about what it really means to be a school with universal technology. Does every student need technology? And if they do, what kind is it? In the first grade classes, they use mostly our iPads, but second and third grade students are using Chromebooks in many ways. It's great to go in the morning, the students open them up, they log in. I was really concerned when we started school how long it would take a second grader to figure out how to log in. They're faster than we are, so they don't make up fancy passwords that confuse them. We're budgeting, and we continue to look at what does technology integration in all areas really look like in the future. And that's something we'll continue to look at because we understand the importance of technology integration in our school. Mark Twain Elementary will continue to enhance instruction through the use of technology in our classrooms. We also added in the red there, and communication. We utilize technology more and more, and tonight you'll see how we're using technology to communicate with families. It's important that we understand that not everyone will answer an email, or not everyone will look at a newsletter if you put it on a piece of paper, but just about every one of us has a phone. And when I send out a message on a Friday that or a Thursday that there's no school on Friday because of a staff development day using Class Dojo, I have over 700 views usually. It comes back and tells me that. So we have, I'm sorry, what?
Maybe just have you cancel school.
I don't know about that, Dr. Salas. You can make the decision. I'll send the message out, but you can.
District Dojo.
I can ride with him. I don't mind to ride along. But it works really well. Yeah, when we work together to communicate with families, we see that it works pretty well. So, staff members. One of the things we talked about in one of our surveys, we surveyed staff members about the technology training that they received, and one of the things that we've started to see and use more of is peer or colleague tutoring on our staff development days. So oftentimes when you come to our building on a staff development day, the morning is usually reserved for building level meetings. You will see us have a faculty meeting, and then afterwards we'll do some breakout sessions where we take the technology that we're using in our classrooms and we show one another. It's nice when you have a colleague who is working in your building using something that you're not using, and that person can take the time to discuss with you how they use it, how it works, what the pitfalls were in the beginning, and then also, how how they've overcome the obstacles that they had. So we try to enhance technology use with the help also of our technology specialist. It's great to see those educators that were moved into that position. They're not afraid to stand in front of our classes and help us out, and we use them as a tech tool as well. It's good to see them come into our classroom, and our technology department does a great job of helping support our teachers in the classroom. The next area of focus is interventions for our students. And I talked a little bit about small groups. If you come into different classrooms, you'll see that we try to find ways to help students, both the students that are struggling and also students who have mastered a skill. Here we have Mr. Edgar in a small group setting working on multiplication, just using card tricks. Sometimes we forget that it's important to put away the worksheet, put away the book, and just show kids some fun activities to learn some of the skills that they need to go through. I enjoy going into classrooms and seeing this small group activity, the laughter, kids learning without realizing that they're truly learning. And these groups oftentimes will have a good mix of kids who get it and kids who do not, and they work together. And they don't really realize that they're working together. It's a great way to impact students who are struggling and also those who get it. So Mark Twain Elementary will identify, analyze data, and provide interventions for at-risk students. This goal is still in place. What you will see is some of the things that we're doing to help our students in this area. One of the areas we talked about earlier was behavior. And this year, we're working to try to emphasize both positive, trying to find ways to emphasize positive behaviors and look for solutions to some of the behaviors that distract from learning. We set the table at the beginning of the year with regard to small group instruction, and it helps to sit down one-on-one with students. This year, we've implemented school-wide class dojo, and as Mrs. Green will emphasize today, you'll understand how it's helping parents and students, because there is an incentive for a student to do the right thing in class. They can see immediately the feedback they receive. It's not just a clip chart where your paper clip or your clothespin goes up and down. It's actual points on the board, and it goes directly to their parents. So if you're a student who's having a tough day and you're talking out in class, your parents know immediately. So you can't go home and say, I had a great day, when you didn't. That lends to students being more responsible for their own behavior, because when you go home at night and mom says, what happened today in Mr. Edgar's class, you can communicate with the child. I like the idea of instant feedback with families, the two-way communication that occurs, and I also communicate back and forth with families. They can send me a message directly. Many of our families are more used to direct message with a cell phone than an email. It's less formal. They can just ask me a quick question, and oftentimes the response is within a few minutes. So having that direct access is a good thing, I think, with our families. And then on the next page, talks about our response to intervention model. This year, Mark Twain Elementary has changed our response to intervention model. Last year, we used to have a bell that would ring, and about every single student would get up and go to a different classroom. This year, we've sent our response to intervention model back to the grade levels to determine the time that worked best for them. They're able to pull other teachers for assistance and to look at ways that their students need help. It hasn't locked us into specific times, and what I found this year is there are some grade levels that need more time in specific areas depending on the objectives they're working on, and sometimes they need less time so they can move on to the next objective. So it's allowed some flexibility, and as we transition from school-wide RTI to grade level RTI, we're going to talk at the end of the year. We'll look at what were the outcomes. Was this a positive change, or is this something we need to go back and look at? So it's been a good thing to try something new at the request of teachers. So far this year, we survived the eclipse. It was a great day at Mark Twain. Lots of good things going on that day. PTO at Mark Twain is a strong force. We have a great PTO component. They work very hard and invest a lot of time in our students. And We have a high participation rate of our PTO. Last year, our PTO was able to purchase soccer goals. We put in a chalkboard outside. They upgraded the sound system in our building. They're constantly looking for ways to support what we do in our building. We just sent out a survey last week to look at some goals. We're looking at, we want to do things in our building that families feel are important. We had everything from a digital sign on Salem Avenue to the outdoor classroom work to swing sets, all the way down to a reading garden in the front part of our building. And we want parent feedback before we start any of those projects. So PTO does great work in our building, and they're an integral part of what makes Mark Twain what it is. We now have pre-K students. I have to say, since day one, I love hearing what the other buildings are saying about the pre-K students being some of the best kids in the building, their behavior. It's been great to see them. One of the things that I've really enjoyed, and the piece of this that is important for everyone to understand, is how these students interact, or our other students interact with the pre-K students. I see a kind of a mentoring role from our older students. We have 2 young ladies right now that help these students get out of their car. Well, there's adults there as well, but these young ladies actually help them walk up the hallway and go to their classrooms. They set a good example for them. And our pre-K students are, as they're going down the hallway, set a pretty good example for a 3rd grader who needs to learn how to do the right thing in the hallway. So it's kind of works both ways for them. So it's been a good change in our building. Looking forward to next year presenting in our school improvement plan, looking at the data from our pre-K students, trying to determine, looking at these students individually and see kindergarten readiness and how this molds and shapes the way that our kindergartners are ready for kindergarten. As you know, I'm responsible for kindergarten registration, and I've seen over the years students come to kindergarten that weren't ready. I'm hopeful that we've put a dent in that population, and we will see a kindergarten that looks much different than before. And then finally, one of the things that we, at the beginning of the year, actually at the end of last year, we talked about ways to engage families, and we all understood that it was important to keep parents in the loop. And we talked about different ways to keep in touch with families, and one of the things we couldn't really do was, sometimes you send a newsletter home and the child loses it. Sometimes you send an email and someone's email address changes. I don't like to really send out a whole lot of messages because I think people become numb to it. So with the integration of our use of Class Dojo this year as a building, we've been able to see an opportunity for classrooms to connect on a more personal basis. And Mrs. Green is here today. She'll present some information about Class Dojo. Everything from taking a picture of an event to sending a quick message out to families to let them know, hey, the spelling test is Friday. Has your child brought home his or her study guide for that? So looking forward to her presentation on this, and then also Mrs. Swice's conversation about how as a parent this looks to them. I'll go ahead and let Tess present, and Mrs. Swice, and then I'll answer any questions anyone might have, unless you have a different order. Okay? Can you click on the link for me, please?
Thank you, Mr. Ridley. Hi.
Hi there.
How are you guys? Okay, so yeah, I'm Tess Green. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Mark Twain. A lot of you have probably known me since I was a kindergartner here in Raleigh Public Schools. I started out teaching 1st grade, and now I've been in kindergarten. This will be my 2nd year. I am the facilitator for the PBS, Positive Behavior Support Committee at Mark Twain. I have a great team that actually does just as much work as I do, so I hate to take all the credit. But we've worked really hard this year with Class Dojo. That was our main focus. So as I'm sure you know, we're going to talk about Class Dojo. I know Truman and Wyman have also been using it, but we decided this year to go school-wide. Every teacher must have it in their classroom to have that common ground. So this was pulled directly from the Class Dojo website, which has plenty of resources on there if anyone ever wanted to look into it further. But Class Dojo is a communication app for the classroom. It connects teachers, parents, and students who use it to share photos, videos, and messages through the school day. They use Class Dojo to work together as a team, share in the classroom experience, and bring big ideas to life in their classrooms and home. And I feel like that's exactly what is happening right now with Class Dojo. Here in a little bit, I will show you my classroom account for Class Dojo with my students on there. And I have great communication with the families right now, much more than I've had in the last 3 years of teaching, much more participation from families and involvement. So my next slide talks about how Mark Twain is using class-wide dojo. Mark Twain decided to go school-wide to increase our communication with families. That was part of our CSIP plan for Mark Twain to improve the citizenship skills, which through dojo kind of focuses on the students having respect, cooperation, and self-improvement. And then through good character traits, we're looking for students to be responsible, take credit for their own behavior, to have good teamwork, self-control, and to be polite. So that goes right hand in hand with that CSIP. A couple of facts that I wanted to throw in, again, from the Class Dojo site, is that it's actively used in 90% of K-8 schools. It may just be one teacher in the building using it. It may be a handful of teachers using it. Another awesome feature is that it's translated and used in over 35 languages. Here in a little bit, when I show you our Class Dojo page, you can see not which parent, but how often our posts are translated. And as I'm sure you know, with Rolla being the engineering school and the diverse people that we have here in town, we have that feature used quite a bit. I have just in my room 3 students whose parents translate any of my posts, and they're able to communicate better with us and understand what we're saying, because a lot of times I feel like I explain myself to them and they say, and I'm like, okay, we're good. Yeah, you got it. But this allows them to kind of reiterate it, and if we post information on there, they can look back at it, translate it, process it, and they have more time to understand it. We're giving them the time of day that they deserve.
Can
So-
they then respond in their own language and then you translate it?
That hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure we could. We could do that, yes. It increases the communication that we have with our families, the ones that are just kind of challenging to reach out to. Like I said, some of our families that don't speak English at home, when they come in for conferences, or they may not feel comfortable to come to a Mark Twain bingo night or something in that nature because they don't speak English. And so this is a great way for us to kind of reach out to them and kind of let them know that we support them as well and that we're here to help in any way possible. Oops, I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. To continue on with how Mark Twain is using Class Dojo, just to break it down, our focus is communication and behavior management. The communication we address both through classrooms and school-wide. So again, towards the end of this slide, I will show you an actual Class Dojo account. Every teacher has their own dojo account, so each student has their own dojo account that their parents can view, but we also have a feature where there's a school-wide one. And I know we talked about Facebook pages tonight. That's kind of what our school-wide Mark Twain dojo account is you can go to it and Mr. Fridley can post, don't forget no school on Friday, or don't forget fundraiser pickup today after school from 3 to 5:30. We can post things on there, and again with the translation, you can also look and see how many families have viewed it. And so we currently have approximately 445 students, I think, enrolled at Mark Twain, and almost all of those families are connected to Class Dojo. And when we see how many people have viewed it, it shows us that those parents are actually responding, and they're rather than sending that newsletter home and you're going, I hope it makes it home through the bus and the backpack and the folder and all that good stuff, we're able to post things on there. So we have that communication there that's really helped this year. Behavior management. We want to reward students for positive behavior. Like Mr. Fridley said, sadly, you kind of, as a teacher, as a parent, as just a human, you kind of sometimes are guilty of fixating on that negative behavior. If you have a whole class of kids and there's one kid standing in his chair with his scissors swinging them like this, which it does happen in a kindergarten room, you fixate on that child rather than addressing, oh, I love that the rest of the class is following directions and getting their work done. So Dojo has encouraged us to work on recognizing the positive behavior, and we see those negative behaviors decrease because we're not drawing attention to the negative behavior, because we've all heard that negative behavior is better, or negative attention is better than no attention at all. So we're trying to just fixate on the positive, and that kind of reins those other kiddos in. So we look at the students' day-to-day behavior through the reports and the message feature on Dojo. Some of the rewards we do. We have a Friday dance party every Friday when Mr. Fridley comes over the intercom in the morning. We play music, and if your dojo percentage is high enough, which we have it set at 85%, if it is high enough, then you get to go out in the hallway and dance with the rest of the school. It's kind of cool to see on the cameras. You see all these kids breaking it down, and even Mr. Cross has a couple good moves we've seen. So we have a Friday dance party. We have accumulated points. So students, they get dojo points at their own pace. So I will show you here in a little bit. Some of my students may have a total of 125 dojo points so far this school year, starting in August to this present date. Some of them might be up to 200, and so we want to recognize that. When they hit 100 dojo points, they go to the office and they get a prize. When they hit 200, they get another prize, 300, 400, all the way up. We do quarterly rewards. One of those rewards that we actually just finished up was our first quarter reward, and we had a fun flush, which is kind of like a dunk tank. And teachers had the privilege of sitting under it in October's lovely weather. And if they threw the ball and they hit the target, all this water flushed down on top of you. So the kids loved it, and that's all that matters, is we just have to suck it up and be a good sport. And the kids loved it. It's worth it to them, because those that didn't have that dojo percentage that was high enough due to their behavior, they didn't get to participate. But we're already seeing that increase of, well, if I didn't get it next time, second quarter, I'll definitely have it, because I don't want to miss out on that. So one last thing that we do for our dojo to reward students is at the end of the year, we'll do a principal pizza party. I want to make sure I get that right. So for our kiddos that have the highest dojo points, they also get to participate in a pizza party with the principal, so that Mr. Fridley can also show them how much we appreciate their great behavior at Mark Twain. So I am currently working on my master's, and Class Dojo has been an excellent resource for me. So I actually sent home a survey to some random people, and these are the results. So I just happen to have those for you tonight to present. One of them was just, how often do you look at Class Dojo? We had anything ranging from every day to once a week to very rarely to never. It's kind of hard to see the colors up here, but the blue is the everyday. We have a lot of parents that their Class Dojo is their child's Facebook. As much as they get on Facebook during the day, they get on their child's Class Dojo because they want to see what pictures have been posted, what their child's behavior's been. At least once a week we'll have parents go on there. And then a few parents said very rarely, but we've never, I didn't have any feedback come back that say, nope, never, not doing it. And I actually have all of my parents on board in my room, and I think that we, with, like I said, with parents viewing it, over 445 students, most of them are connected. So that was a good achievement for us that we were proud of. Favorite part about Dojo. Dojo offers a behavior summary where you can see your child's behavior from day to day, both positive and negative. You can do messaging with parents, and there's a class story, which is, again, kind of like a Facebook page where you can post pictures, post funny things you've done in the room, the fun flush, me getting soaked with water. Parents eat that stuff up because they get to see what their kids are doing day to day, and they feel like they are involved as well. So that was two of the components. And then the other two is, how do you access Class Dojo? There is a Class Dojo website, and it does have an app. As you can see, most of our families use the app because most of us have a smartphone, so it's pretty easy to just pull your phone out, check Class Dojo, whether it be once a day, once a week, as soon as your child gets home from school, so they can discuss it together. We didn't have any parents with the survey that I had sent out say they do not. How frequently do you discuss Class Dojo at home with your child? This was one that I was really interested in because my kids talk in my room as if Class Dojo is God. Like, they go home and they tell mom and dad this is how it was, and mom and dad already know, so they have that connection and they're getting to talk about it. My students, whether it's positive or negative behavior, like Mr. Fridley was talking about, it's addressed. Most kids don't go home and tell on themselves. I wasn't that kid, so I can't imagine many kids have changed since then. So Class Dojo allows parents the opportunity to follow up on this behavior and address issues at home. So it kind of allows the teacher and the parent to tag team issues that may be happening at school that kind of get forgotten if they get put in a folder or they get sent in an email or something in that matter. So, some comments that we have from parents. I just wanted to highlight on a couple of these. I won't touch base on all of them. But I sent out the survey, and these were where parents could have open discussion. And one of my parents said, I can see what my child is working on in class, talk with his teacher, and monitor behavior. So they appreciate the multi-use feature of Class Dojo. They're able to send a message on there and then click over one tab and see how their child's doing, and then click over on another tab and see a picture of their child in their Halloween costume because they couldn't make it to their class party. So it's got multi-features that parents really enjoy. Parents said, I like seeing what kids are working on. It makes it easier to talk to your child about their day. I actually just read an article for my master's class that was talking about 50 questions to ask your child besides, how was your day? And this totally relates to this. This allows parents to say, oh, I saw that you got to dunk Mrs. Green today in the Fun Flush, or I saw that your class got to dance in the hallway. Did you get to participate as well? Things like that, to where that conversation isn't just one-sided and it's not just a dead end. It opens up conversation between parents and their child. And the last one I really liked, because I thought this was a lot coming from a parent, it was pretty deep, is I love the positive reinforcement tools that encourage kids to be their best. So often, like I said, we fixate on that negative, but right now we're working on focusing on the positive and showing parents that those kids that are good every single day, Monday through Friday, never had a trip to the office, that we see that behavior too. That is just as important as those students that need our attention for other reasons as well. So I'm going to let you take a look inside of Class Dojo. Do you mind to click on that for me, Nancy? I would try, but I'd probably be up here all night trying to navigate. Thank you. So a couple things I am going to show you while she's logging us in is that there's the Mark Twain component, to where Mr. Fridley can get on there and post things that all parents need to see. So that's a feature that it kind of covers everything across the board. Things that I would want to tell my parents, don't forget, no school tomorrow. Things that we may want to address, such as the telephones were down a couple weeks ago, I think it was. And this allowed us to let parents know, if you're trying to contact us, we know that we have an issue in the building, but they can still access it through their phones because we have access on our phone. And Mr. Fridley was able to get on there, make a quick message. Parents could see if there is a problem, but we're working on fixing it. So if you want to click on Mark Twain, Nancy, for me, please. If you just briefly scroll down through there, like it shows, we have 690 parents connected. So 445 kids, excuse me. So at least one parent, hopefully, of every student is connected, and they see different things on here. We've posted surveys on here, and we've gotten great feedback through them. You can see where you can like and comment, which is kind of a feature like many parents are used to today through social media. You can comment, but we are able to filter it much more closely than rather a Facebook page would allow us to. You can see how many parents have viewed it, so that's relieving as well. For instance, with the fundraiser pickup, Mr. Fridley posted that at probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 3:30, when it was time for fundraiser pickup, we had over 400 views of parents that had seen, like here, right here, 514 views of parents that had seen, oh, I need to pick up my stuff. Whereas before, they may not have gotten off work till 5, so they may not check their child's folder to see, oh, I need to pick up fundraiser stuff tonight. So it's that immediate feedback that we are looking for, and that parents are seeking. So this is a book fair, great advertisement through that, because again, those little notes that go home are little bookmarks reminding parents they don't always make it. So this allows parents to see that. If you scroll back up to the top or you hit back, you can hit my my class page. So if you go over to your classes, yes, please. And scroll down just a little bit. There's the little red bubble, which means the parent's trying to contact me. You can click on that green circle, and that will be my class page. And just like Truman was talking about, we have Class Dojo in both specials and our class terms. So they're constantly being monitored and they're constantly being rewarded. So this is my Class Dojo page. And as you can see, these are all of my students and their numbers range. All of them are positive at this point. The green shows positive, the red shows negative. That's a feature we choose not to have open. On the right, it shows the green. On the left, you could show, and some teachers do show the negative points. But right now, we're just focusing on positive. So that's not something that we want to have on display for the rest of our kids to see, but parents can see it at home. So if you want to just pick a random kid to click on, any of them is fine. This is the positive. So these are anything that I could give for positive points in my classroom. I could say, oh, Keely, I love how you're working hard in class. And I could give her a dojo point for working hard, or I love that you're keeping your hands to yourself in line. And that's one thing to where if I have 4 kids in line that are pushing and shoving because they want to be at the front, instead of saying you, and you're not following directions and addressing that, I can address all those kids that are doing the right thing, and then those other kids self-correct. I give dojo points for everything. If you're the line leader that day, dojo point. If you're there that day, dojo point. Attendance, you're there, dojo point. If Mr. Fridgley sees you in the hallway, he can get on his phone and give a dojo point. We want to constantly try to push that positive behavior. Again, it's the first year we've gone school-wide, so it seems a bit extreme, but the students are responding very well to it, so we don't want to let them down either. If you scroll back up, there's also a negative, so I will show the good and the bad. So if you hit needs work up there at the top by the positive in the middle, these are some things that you might lose a point for. Like I said, I teach kindergarten, so I give lots of warnings. I repeat myself over and over and over again. But if I give, say, 2 or 3 warnings for keeping your hands to yourself and it's still an issue, then I may take a dojo point. Or if we have a sub and your behavior wasn't good for the sub, I address that through dojo because I want parents to know and I want the student to know that I expect you to be better for your sub than you are for me. So we do address both the positive and the negative through here. If you exit that, Nancy, and then, thank you so much. And then at the top right corner, it says View Reports. If you click that, I can go through, and this shows my whole class right now. We are at 96% positive for this week. I could also look at this month, this entire school year, but just this week we're at 96% positive. And if you were to like hover over them, you could see kind of the behaviors where they're struggling. For instance, I had a doctor's appointment this week and I had a sub. Some of my kiddos couldn't handle the sub. So we addressed that issue as needed. But it's typically things like maybe not following directions, getting your work done in class, talking, which was one that I would have had a couple nicks on in school myself. So it happens. But if you look over to the left, lots of 100% positive feedback, 96%, 95%. We try to focus on being positive. Not every kid reaches that. Not every kid gets to have every reward every week, but you can guarantee that if they didn't get it this week, we've communicated with families. We've sent this report home so parents can see, here's where my child is struggling, and we're going to hope for a better week next week. If you want to look over to, if you want to exit that for me. If you scroll up a little bit, sorry. Class Stories is right there in the middle. There's Classroom, and then there's a tab for Stories. As you can see, I have 100% of my parents connected, and this is where I get the chance to brag on my students. And so you can see today, I even posted pictures. We made pilgrim hats this week and Native American hats. And so we took a picture because we do a Thanksgiving feast, but again, not all parents can make those events. And so we went ahead, and I try to post pictures on there so parents can see what's going on in class. I won't have you scroll through all of it, but there's things on there widely from what happened at our Halloween party, the parade through the school, my 2A plus cadets working with my kids, which the kindergartners love. Kindergarten t-shirts. We all make kindergarten t-shirts still at Mark Twain, and so we got a group picture. Field trips, I mean, you name it, it's on there. The eclipse. We try to just post school-wide. We try to keep our class story updated so parents can stay in the loop of what's going on. So there's anything from really cheesy pictures to, yeah, we get lots of silly faces, even when you say smile. Centers, I try to post centers in the classroom too, because I really want parents to see what their child's working on. Because, for instance, in kindergarten, we work on letter recognition, but I don't want it to look like we just sit there and drill them with flashcards. What letter's this? What letter's this? We do hands-on activities, and I want them to see that because it also gives parents ideas at home. So my last thing, I will say that the data, the donut up there that showed like the 96% class average, that would be where we go to look for student assistant team information for our SAT. If I wanted to refer one of my kiddos for whether it be behavior or academics, I can immediately pull that up and print it off. And that's just one more resource we have available to show that we've been tracking this child's behavior in the classroom. So I know I've covered dojo kind of quick, I'm sorry. But I wanted to go ahead and, I know Mark Twain's a fan, but I wanted to have a parent come and also you have a chance to hear their perspective. So we have Alyssa Schweiss here. And I will give her the mic, and I'll just try to talk loud enough when I ask her a couple questions that you have a chance to hear both. Closer? Okay. We're going to get close. All right, Alyssa, how many children do you have at Mark Twain?
2.
2 children, and how many? That was easy. This is going to go quick. You don't have much longer. How many years have your kids been at Mark Twain, and how many years have you been doing dojo?
3 years at Mark Twain, and this is my first year to use Class Dojo.
Okay. How often do you discuss Class Dojo at home with your family?
Every day. It's kind of like this new thing where, well, they like to check it on my phone, like as soon as they get in the car, because for some reason they don't ever know like exactly how many they got that day. And so Weston will always say, "Can I get your phone and see?" So pretty much every day they want to see how many points they got.
What features do you like about Class Dojo?
It makes me feel like I'm more a part of their day because teachers post right away. Like if they're there, then they get a point for attendance. So, and then Weston is in 2nd grade, so he does AR. So his teacher will give him a point if he gets 100% on a test. So I'm just able to keep up with their day a little bit more. And this one of my favorite things is if they do lose a point, I know right away, and if it's something that really needs to be addressed, I can prepare better. Whereas before, if it came home in their folder, it may get shoved aside because we're busy and we're doing dinner. And so now I'm a little bit more prepared when they get home. For instance, one of my kids got in the car and said, "I don't want to talk about Class Dojo today." And the other one was like, Why? How many did you get? Did you lose one? And I just said, "We're not going to talk about it right now, but after you do your after-school chores, we're going to talk about it." And I felt like I handled it better, and then we handled it, and it was over. Whereas before, I probably wouldn't have been able to handle it as well as I wanted to.
Okay. What features do you like about Class Dojo? What do you access the most?
One feature that kind of surprised me, I pick up my kids at school, and so we'll do folder and all of the after-school stuff right away and just put it away before we lose it. And my husband has Class Dojo. So before he really wouldn't know what was in the folder or what was going on, and now he does because it's on his phone too. So it's not just me knowing what's going on. By the way, I told him the other day, Donuts with Dad is December, whatever it is. And he was like, okay. And I know it'll remind him too. So he's just more a part of the day too.
Okay, and the last one I have is, has Class Dojo bettered your communication through Mark Twain between this year and last year?
Yes, I truly like it. I like that it's private, so I still get to be a part of their day, but it's just me and their teacher, just me and their class, so I still get pictures and I see things, and it's a lot easier. Like, for instance, if I have to message the nurse to say, my kid came to school with a headache, but I think they're fine. I used to have to get on the website and look up, now what's the nurse's name and what's her email, and now I can just click on her directly and shoot her pretty much a text through Class Dojo. So,
Do you have anything else you want to add?
no.
No? All right. Any questions from you guys? That's really all we have.
I had some, but you answered them all. You did a
Oh,
great
sorry,
job.
I was talking quick. I was
You did a
keep
great
going.
job.
I didn't give you a chance.
Give us a chance to see it. We've heard so
Yeah.
much about it. I've just never seen it. So I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
absolutely. And if you guys ever have any more questions, since I think most of your guys' kiddos are grown up my age, so they're not doing Class Dojo anymore, even though it would have been a great feature back then, you're welcome to email me, and I'm happy to answer questions and anything that might come to mind. Like I said, it's very flexible, and our teachers, even though we're implementing it school-wide, I may use it differently than a 3rd grade teacher. 3rd grade teachers, they've got Chromebooks, they've got iPads. Those kids might have their own account set up. In kindergarten, we keep it simple. You get to change your monster once a week, and that's about as much as we have them do hands-on, because that takes 30 minutes in itself. But that's a great feature. We're doing it common school-wide, but it's flexible to each teacher and each grade level. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions for me this evening?
Man, I just really like that focus on the positive, and that's, to me, that's changing culture. PBIS is part of that, but that's just another step in that direction.
Thank you.
changing that culture.
Yes, and it's been teacher-driven, and that's what makes it really work. And that constant communication, not just a newsletter or those kinds of things, making a connection with a family is one of the things we're trying to do to make school more personal for families. I love the fact that she said Dad was able to keep up. you know, because sometimes dads, we're guilty of not looking in the folder. That's a great thing to hear as well. Thank you for your time this evening. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now we will